Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Gaming in the Yeltsin Years. I'd like everybody to close their eyes and imagine the most magnificent guest. Reveal yourself, guest.
Hi, I'm alleged artist and occasional speedrunner, TheThreeTwo. I'm here to talk about Speed Power Gunbike, a hidden gem of the PlayStation era.
A hidden gem that inspired Silent Hill.
I think of Speed Power Gunbike as the Zardion of the PlayStation 1.
Oh, totally.
TheThreeTwo actually has the possibly dubious honor of being the guest I have known the longest.
Hey,
We first met each other, it would have been like about 20 years ago, I think.
man, really? Well, I hit my 20th anniversary at work and stopped counting, so I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
And yeah, we met in a kind of community that was making fun of / appreciating weird emulated Japanese games, and clearly none of us have moved on because here we are.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So yeah, this is the episode on Speed Power Gunbike.
I mean, I have my story of how I discovered this hidden gem.
That's probably a good idea because I discovered it through you. So
Okay.
How did you discover it?
Well, I was staying at my grandpa's house on one of many weekends when I was younger, and there's like nothing to do in that town, so I go to the convenience store and look at video game magazines. And so I found this issue of Game Fan, and I was flipping through it, and there's this really eye-catching illustration of this girl wearing like a wrestler mask wired into a mechanical frame, and above it are the words Speed Power Gunbike. And it just wedged itself in my head for decades. And when I discovered like PlayStation emulation, that was like the first game I grabbed because I finally had to try it out.
So, wait, you fell in love with it at the end of the 90s, and you only tried it in the 2000s?
Yeah, about.
Wow.
I'd messed with emulation before, but like getting disc-based games was kind of finicky.
We both remember Nesticle, like we were there at the beginning of this.
Yeah, Nesticle was the go-to. This is actually the first game by the studio Inti Creates, who went on to make Mega Man Zero, and they did a lot of like work for hire type stuff, and then eventually they got to make their own titles. And there's almost like a through line of a lot of Inti Creates stuff where it like feels like Mega Man.
Oh, they were also involved in one of my favorite games, Mighty Number 9.
I was hoping it wouldn't take this turn.
Yeah, they did like the legwork for Mighty Number 9, and it was the first time they did a lot of stuff, including like online, which is why the online is awful. Well, they had like what? Just like a timed versus mode where you're racing through the stage.
Against Vernon.
That weird dude who lives down the street whose name is probably Vernon.
The funny thing is, though, there's like a lot of games they made later that feel like they wanted to go back and have another go at things that they failed at.
Yeah, because this and Mighty Number 9 are both dash-based.
Yeah. And then in Gunvolt 2 onward, there's a big emphasis on like combo chaining with dash characters.
There's probably a dash that makes you breakfast.
But the lead artist from the beginning, up until fairly recently, was Toru Nakayama, who was known for the Mega Man Zero series. He has like the big, chunky, yet at the same time childlike character designs. And you can see that in the official art for Gunbike.
Yeah, if you look at the characters in Gunbike, like they could literally just be in Mega Man Zero. Like it's so close. And yeah, this game, it didn't do terribly well for their first game. Apparently only 5,000 copies were made.
Yeah, it's going for a lot of money now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is really weird because like I was digging through like really old forum discussions about this, and I was saying, yeah, I found a copy for $30, and I'm like, fuck.
It actually, it does have a PSN release, or had a PSN, like a PS Classics release on the Japanese PSN. It was apparently one of those games where like everyone had a friend that had it, but like they didn't have it.
And yeah, this got no release outside of Japan. And within Japan, it looks like it got pretty mediocre reviews. It was getting sort of like 5s and 6s out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that was like due to like when it came out. Because like it was about the same time the DualShock came out, but it didn't have analog support itself, and it really would have needed it.
Yeah, that's one of my big notes, is just how awkward the controls are initially, but they're kind of okay when you get used to them.
You have to accept it with your heart.
Yes.
Don't think too hard. I'm sorry, I just...
That we got that from a Gunbike website. It's like, there's
I
one
love it.
Gunbike fan site that just has this part that says, Gunbike is a game you must accept with your heart. Do not use logic. So, yeah, Gunbike, it's a kind of hybrid racing action game. But you're not really racing against anyone. You're racing against a timer that is also your health bar.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it's called the energy meter. And basically it starts off at 99 and it goes down. It also goes down when you get hit, so even if you're not taking any damage, you still have this like ticking clock above you. And you are piloting this transforming motorcycle that has these 3 modes to it. So it's got bike mode that's really, really fast, but also if you get hit, you will immediately spin out and lose a ton of time while you get back on the bike. Then it's got this thing called rally mode that's kind of like a trike. That's a lot more stable, but it's a lot slower. And then it's got the robot mode, which is like this sort of humanoid form, which is incredibly slow, but it's also the only form that can attack. And the idea is that you're trying to sort of maintain your momentum while switching between these different forms in such a way that you are able to go really fast, approach an enemy, flip into robot mode, hit it, and then flip back again into bike or rally mode. So that you're constantly, you're switching between these forms to damage whatever is in front of you / go really fast. And once you get the timing down, it has this incredible sort of like flow to it. Like you really feel like you've mastered it. You're just rocketing through these stages, punching everything, ramming into things, vaulting across the level. But if you don't know what you're doing, because it's your first time playing it, or possibly like your 8th time playing it, and you mess up even slightly, it is excruciating.
Yeah, especially listening to the tires.
Yeah, cards on the table, I cannot comment on the soundtrack of this game because I muted the audio after about half an hour of listening to the fucking tires. So yeah, this game, it gets criticized for having bad controls a lot, and I get it, and I think like this, despite on the surface looking like a kind of very straightforward sort of arcadey racing game, it is very much not like a pick up and play thing. Like you actually have to really, really learn this control scheme before you can seriously attempt to play it at all.
So I actually have a problem with people criticizing the controls, because Sophie told me to read the manual that she sent me before attempting to play, and I said, no, I'm a professional. I can do this on my own.
I just gotta play.
So I actually, what you're saying, I did figure it out all on my own. I couldn't figure out how I turned into the rally form from the bike form, but it was fine. I'm like, I'll just be a rally forever. That's okay. But the thing that you say where you transform from your bike to your robot, punch things, transform back, where, you know, if you hit certain things on your bike, you sort of fall off and have to get back on, but as a robot, that doesn't happen. Or when your robot, if it goes too fast, it starts glitching. You got to punch the walls to get somewhere. Like that, like if you play for a little bit, you figure that out on your own. The problem is the camera angles.
Oh, yeah. You have no camera control. And if you fly off the bike, for some reason, it flips 180 degrees and watches you run towards the bike. And the camera won't rotate forwards again until you tap one of like the turn buttons.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just like get on and press the gas, you're looking at the front of your character.
Yeah, and you're like, am I going to ram into something again?
It does have a training mode.
Yeah.
The training mode itself is pretty difficult. Like there's a lot of like 90-degree bends and things, and you have a timer ticking down. So like I'm like lurching, I feel like a drunk pinball. I'm like slamming into walls constantly, and the camera's spinning around. And like the thing I found actually was like I played the training, and it's full of all these like really sharp 90-degree bends and really narrow corridors. And I thought, oh god, this game's going to be impossible. The first 2 levels are actually pretty manageable. Like they're nothing like that. Yeah. I thought, oh, was the training just there to like as an additional challenge, and then level 3 happened? I'm like, oh, okay, that was foreshadowing.
Well, they do teach you some stuff that's not really super important. Like, you'll practically never use the gun, ironically, for the gun bike. Only one character can even aim and fire like they teach you in the tutorial. The other ones just pop out and fire their gun off in like a burst.
Yeah, there's a lot of like just seemingly redundant things you can do in it, but also like there's so many different difficulty levels. And something I found out after beating it a few times is that every time you beat it, it unlocks an additional little piece of text on this page that's just called advice.
Yeah.
And what's on the advice page is like tutorials about how to pull off like advanced techniques that aren't actually in the training, which includes like a fourth gun bike mode. And you have a gun, you actually have like a super gun. Do these ever actually come into it? Or are they just there?
I think most of them are just kind of there.
Yeah.
Especially because like the wind-up time is so long. It does pause your energy while you're doing that, so it's not like you're
Yeah.
losing time doing these moves.
Yeah, I figured out how to do the gun attack while I was fighting the penultimate boss, and I thought, oh great, this will make the fight go faster, because the penultimate boss, I was sitting there thinking, this can't be how I'm supposed to do it. This is ridiculous. And then like, oh wait, I have this like charge up super attack thing, I'll use that. And then I proceeded to miss with every single one of them, because what it does is it plays out this like Final Fantasy VII-esque summon animation. We have to watch all this shit happen as the guns like arm and attach to you. Except that time has not stopped during that. Like your energy's not counting down, but things are still moving around you.
Well,
so
yeah.
You aim, and then it's just complete blind luck whether the thing you're aiming at has decided to go back there by the time the animation's over. Like, it's just possibly just driven off somewhere else.
It's kind of like Dio's world, but backwards.
Yes.
I'm preparing the most powerful attack, and the guy's just like dancing around you.
And yeah, there's a focus on score. Like the thing is, it's quite a short game. Like a successful run, if you don't fuck up that much, is like about half an hour. You do get the impression this is like, it's like an arcade thing, or it's like Sonic the Hedgehog or something, where they just expect you to start from the beginning every single time and focus on like racking score up and racking combos up and things like that.
And I know you like that combo on combo action.
So yeah, there are a couple of myths about Speed Power Gunbike, because it is such a sparingly documented game that just someone mentioning something on like a blog 15 years ago ends up being repeated as if it's a fact, even though it's unsourced. So, do you want to talk about some of the myths about Speed Power Gunbike?
Well, the first one that sticks out to me is that when I read the Hardcore Gaming 101 article on it, they said that there was a hidden character. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, how do I get the hidden character? Who would be the hidden character? Because there's only so many modeled things in the game. And so I basically just game sharked it, played like the hardest difficulties with every character, and nothing happened. And eventually, the guy who wrote it got in touch with me through my Twitch channel, and he said that he wrote it from memory. He'd played it as a kid and hadn't actually played it in like years.
Aww.
So he remembered there being a hidden character, but it wasn't actually there.
And I think I was there in that stream, and it was like, we have the English-speaking world's two preeminent gun bike experts in the one chat.
Who would have ever thought to be present at this meeting of the minds?
There's like 3 gun bike people. It's like the guy who wrote the Hardcore Gaming 101 article, and a guy called Friendly Dragon.
Yeah, he's really like the top in my book. He actually owns the Japanese light novel that came out with the book. From what I understand, it's kind of a prequel. It's got some extra illustrations and stuff. And that'll come back later when we get to story stuff.
So, one of the other myths that gets repeated a fair bit is that this is an unlicensed attempt to make a game out of the anime Megazone 23. Like, if you watch Megazone 23, I sort of understand why you might think this, because that is about a similar looking character who has a transforming robot motorcycle. It's not, though, is it?
No. Actually, last night, before I went to bed, or like in the window between when I said I'm going to bed and then I started feverishly Googling things instead, I managed to track down the origin point of this, and there was like an old blog that was referencing, there's a YouTuber, Cacophonous, who uploads mecha playthroughs. Just like any mecha game, he has like a pretty exhaustive library of them. And Cacophonous mentioned that it was supposed to be a Megazone 23 game to the writer of the blog. And that's apparently
Right.
the nexus point of where the rumors started, as far as I can tell.
And yeah, there's also, I saw a reference to it being based on a manga, but I think that might be a garbled interpretation of the light novel.
Maybe, yeah.
Which the light novel itself is a prequel, but it's a spin-off that came later.
Yeah.
So, I guess, like, we should maybe talk about the story of Gunbike.
Yeah.
So the thing about Gunbike is it has a lot of cutscenes in it for what is a fairly short PlayStation 1 game. And they are voiced, but they are not subtitled. And as far as I can tell, no one has actually transcribed the dialogue. So it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on if you don't speak Japanese / have the audio muted because of the tires. I watch a lot of things I can't understand the dialogue of, but I'm kind of able to follow them because you can just follow what's happening on screen. About 2/3 of the way through Gunbike, I have no fucking idea what's going on anymore.
It gets out there.
Yeah, I think it's time to finally explain what the fuck this game is actually about.
Okay, I'm going to be taking some broad swings here, though, because I'm kind of in the same boat where, like, I'm not fluent by any means, but I can, like, understand a bit of spoken Japanese. And there's, like, a lot of, like, anime tropes going on that you can piece things together.
Yeah.
They didn't design it with, like, an anime in mind, but they wanted to make it feel like you were watching a nostalgic anime.
Yeah, and the cutscenes are, like, they're very, very good.
Lots of yelling.
There's 3 different characters. They all have their own kind of unique but not really story that you play through. And I played as Amy, who's the wrestling girl you talked about before, and a lot of her cutscenes are just her grabbing her head and screaming.
Yeah, I have a theory that her grabbing her head and having mysterious headaches is because when she goes into rally mode, her face is sticking out the front bumper of the vehicle and she's just ramming everything with her face.
Oh my god.
Why do I have these headaches?
My experience with Speed Power Gunbike is as follows. You're on this, like, futuristic cyberpunk highway. You go through a bunch of corridors, and then you fight a combining gunbike, and then it turns into Evangelion.
Kinda, yeah.
I just want to know why the final boss is an Eldritch vehicle.
I think it's the central computer controlling the Michi, who are like the race that took over the planet or are exterminating humans. I'm a little fuzzy on their motive. I'm a little fuzzy on what they are.
Okay, let's start from
the beginning.
What are the Michi?
The Michi are kind of... I think what they're going for is that they're like artificial life forms, possibly alien in origin, but also possibly made in a lab. And they've kind of like seized the planet's surface after a climate disaster. And the last few survivors are having a hard time fighting back because conventional arms don't work against them, which is, again, kind of Evangelion-like.
Yeah.
If you use the guns against even regular grunts, they get like a little AT field, hex field effect around them. And so they come up with the Gunbike, which channels the rider's spiritual energy into a high-velocity attack. So the Gunbike is the gun, and the rider is the bullet, effectively. In the beginning, your little mobile command base is shot down along the hallway, so everybody has to... Not hallway, highway. They didn't have a hall pass. They have to make their way across the city to the central computer. And along the way, they have to deal with collapsing portions of the city, Michi, and eventually each other, because they kind of split up. The leader of the team, Major Nono, he goes insane in every single route. And turns on the team. He's regarded as like a gunbike prodigy. He's like the best of the best of the best elite soldier man because he survived the first invasion force, but like he lost his sister in the process, Ikumi. And when Ami's fighting him in her version of the battle, he's like kind of like cajoling her. He's like trying to say like, yeah, that's right. You are my cute little Emoto, aren't you? And then
Ooh.
she like shoves him away and goes berserk. Which is supposed to be like a feral Evangelion thing, but it just gets down on all fours and scoots.
She starts crawling on all fours, and she's like invincible for the duration, but she doesn't really attack. She's just bumping into him. She's moving like a lizard.
And after that stage, it turns into like a winged form. So she almost like evolves after she realizes herself. And it's kind of funny because that's like the last thing I figured out in the game. So it's like I evolved with her.
Oh my god.
Wow.
In a corny.
Wow.
But yeah, they're making their way across the city, fighting aliens. They run across a couple of gunbike users, Dan and Goon, which put together is Dangun, which just means bullet.
Right.
They're your rivals. They were like working with the Michi, and they're also the second to last boss. They show up a couple points in the game to just kind of annoy you. You can actually make them leave faster if you hit them enough times, but it's kind of not worth it.
And yeah, and they have a gimmick where their two gun bikes combine into a single larger gun bike.
Yeah.
This boss on its own took me longer than the entire game preceding it.
It is easily the hardest, like the actual hardest boss. It has like a semi-random attack pattern where like it doesn't just mindlessly aggressively chase you the way Nono does when he turns on the team. It will just, if you watch it, it'll do stuff like just walk in circles or punch the fence or stuff like that.
Yeah, because I was like messaging you about this, going like, am I doing this right? This doesn't seem like it should be an actual boss in a game. You're like, no, this is just what it's like. And your tip was like, hope the AI gets stuck on a fence.
Yeah. If you get him up to the fence, he'll still try to flank you, but there's like no space, so he'll just run into the fence more.
Yeah, there's ways you can like air juggle him kind of infinitely if you are Amy and you use her like kind of robot bird form at the very start of the fight. You just infinitely air juggle him. But like, I spent a lot of time fighting this guy. I felt like every time I tried to be clever or do anything that required like a modicum of even intermediate level of skill, it just didn't work. So I just ended up just like literally slamming my head into this guy.
Yeah.
Like over and over again, and then I would sometimes slam my butt into him, and that was the entire fight. I just like charge him, and then
Before I learned the moves, that was basically what I do. I'd like clip him from the side, and then I just start like back dashing over and over.
Yeah. And he has this extremely obnoxious thing he does where when he's turning from the two bikes into the one gun bike, he's invincible. And not only is he invincible, he will hurt you if you get too close to him in this game that is about charging into things.
Also, he can heal.
Then, after defeating the Duocons, what the fuck is happening?
I think they're going for like the anime of the 90s transcendence thing.
Could you explain for the listeners what this actually looks like on screen? And how it plays out?
It's kind of like Sephiroth's ultimate summon attack, except you only have to watch it once, and you're naked and you're flying through space.
Yeah.
And there's 2001 Space Odyssey slabs, then it fades to white, and then there's Chaos Emeralds.
And this is not a cutscene. This is like a level that you are in control of.
Yeah.
It feels like a bonus level from Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of like in this locked on rails trying to bump into like collectibles, but they don't mean anything because the game's over now.
You mean the Chaos Emeralds?
Does your behavior in this level actually affect anything? Like, does anything change based on the number of 2001 monoliths or Chaos Emeralds that you run into along the way?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I've debated whether or not to even include it in the speedrun timing because you can't really like affect how fast you go through it, but you can make it go slower. So I still include it because it's possible to do worse. If you hold triangle during the naked transcendence sequence, you can do a loop-de-loop.
It's like a really shitty version of Knights. But there's nothing to collect and there's no point to it. You're just drifting.
If I can make out more of the dialogue. I would understand more of the dialogue.
So, like, the gun bikes themselves, they're like sentient or something?
Yeah, they all have onboard AIs.
Are we fusing with the AI in the ending, or is the gun bike just completely forgotten about?
See, I think Ipe does, because
Right.
I've been saving this. Spoiler for anybody invested in Gunbike's story. Gunbike dies. When you have the fight with the twins, there's like a cutscene afterwards where she's like starting to break down from psychic interference, and they're like doing this whole thing. They're like trying to reboot, failing, trying to reboot, failing. You have to fight the final boss in silence
Oh.
because like Gunbike is the most talkative AI, and it's like almost a built-in tutorial thing to an extent because she'll like explain basically everything you're doing. Throughout the dialogues, Ipe and Gunbike kind of bond. Like after you fight the big whale monster or whatever in stage 3, he does like the yeah thing, and she imitates him. And he's like, "What?" And then during the last stage, when you're beating your way through all the tanks, he says something like, "I'm so glad to have you by my side," and she starts going like, "I've always wanted to hear you say that."
Oh.
And so I think she might be the girl from the light novel, like digitized.
Right.
But
yeah, in Amy's ending, there's just this like extended sequence where she's talking to this like floating woman I've never seen before.
Yeah, that's Nono's sister Ikumi. She's apparently been absorbed into the Michi's main computer.
Also, is Amy human? Because I believe it lists her as Power Doll.
Some sources call her an outright robot. And I think Powder Doll is her code name, but I think it's probably more accurate to say that she's either like an artificial human or a cyborg.
Is that why she can bash her head into things and survive?
I hope so.
Oh.
Yeah.
But she's made partially with like Michi parts, and she's made specifically to be a gun bike rider, so she has some identity issues. Her storyline is kind of about like self-actualization. And during the end sequence where she's floating through space, she has like some of the most redundant dialogue possible, where she's just like floating into the light going like, "Yes, I am me. I am myself. Watashi wa watashi."
So yeah, I guess like, is this game any good?
Yes. Yeah,
I'd
it's
say
really
so.
good.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable. It's hard
Yeah.
to recommend at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you're saying, this game is like, it looks like a very simple arcade racing game. It kind of looks and plays a little like the early 3D Sonic the Hedgehog games. But like I was saying before, it is very, very much not a game that you can just download, pick up, and play. Like, you actually need to seriously put time into figuring out how to handle the gun bike.
It's kind of like a game that I like enough that I don't like to I don't like to suggest it to people as like, "Hey, I know a terrible game you can play." Because like I want people to give it the time and like learn it.
Yeah, like we were saying, this is not a very long game. And it really wants you to like play the levels through over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Trying new things and gradually getting better at them. So like the first level is this series of highways. And you can, if you want, just rocket through it really quickly, but there's a bunch of little kind of like barriers up that are in universe. They are there to stop you from going into parts of the bridges that have collapsed. They're like safety things. But if you break through them, they have items behind them. And those items are there essentially, from what I can tell, is if you're struggling on the stage. Like, you can just bash through one of these things, there'll be an energy refill.
Yeah, there's a lot at like dead ends.
Yeah, there's these dead ends with energy refills, but if you're doing well enough and you're not spinning out and you're rocketing through it, you won't actually need them. The second level, I think that is probably the most successful.
It has the best boss by far.
Yeah, I think it's the most successful because it's set in a series of train tunnels, and because it is a series of tunnels, it effectively just becomes a rail shooter.
I think it would have been really good if it was a game about like pursuits.
Yeah, it works really well when it's that. It's kind of like playing a momentum-based version of Star Fox.
Yeah.
Where you're just like dodging stuff that's shooting toward you and then powering up and ramming into something when it's not firing at you. And like we were saying, like the boss of this level is a train, which is sort of like that's the perfect boss for this like pursuit thing in the tunnel, because you're just behind this thing and you're gradually taking out the different cars as you move toward the engine. So like I think that's definitely the most successful part of it, and the least successful parts are when they try to make it about navigating a space, which is unfortunately what level 3 is, which is a maze.
I kind of like the mazes a little more, at least in concept, than like when they put you in a standard boss arena. I feel like that's when you suffer the most, because you can't turn and face things easily.
Yeah. The maze is like, I remember when you first encountered the maze, because I was watching you stream and you were like lost in this thing, you had no idea what you were doing. And then our friend Piku discovered that the game actually has a radar in it.
Yeah, my boyfriend discovered it, because I was trying to figure it out, and I'm like, there's no mech, there's nothing. This guy comes in and he's like, okay, you see that thing on the left? When it's green, you're going the right way.
So basically, if you want to succeed at Gunbike, you need to have an unrelated person just come in and go like, hey, hit select.
Oh, there's a select?
Piku was just like button mashing, I think, and accidentally made a radar appear.
Yeah, normally you have like this rangefinder on the left that's like a hot cold thing that changes color when you're going the right direction. But if you hit select, it just becomes an arrow.
Oh, that I didn't know. Wow.
And it's a really good arrow. I really appreciated the arrow design in this, because you would think, described like we're saying, it would just be like a compass that's always pointing at the level objective, but it isn't. It's actually dynamically shifting where it's pointing based on like the progress you're making in the level. So like in the map level, it'll be pointing like, hey, go to the right. But if there's a destructible wall in front of you and you power through the wall and come out the other side, the compass will just change. You go, okay, now you can go left. So like it makes navigating that maze actually quite doable. And like I'm saying, the gimmick with the maze is like you can treat it like an actual maze and just follow this little arrow to go down all these frankly really fucking annoying 90-degree bends in this. It looks like a dungeon crawl that you've accidentally put a motorcycle in. It's just like a grid with these like perfect 90-degree turns down perfectly straight hallways. It's not great for a motorcycle. But it also has destructible walls. And if you know what you're doing, you can smash right through the walls and skip huge chunks of the maze. So I'm thinking, like, if you were really, really into this, you could actually map out, like, there's probably some optimal route that lets you finish the maze in, like, 12 seconds by just bashing through the right walls.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things like that, like, oh, this is here because it's expecting you to play this level, like, dozens and dozens of times.
I think we both appreciated, also, at some of the wrong turns, they bothered to model, like, actual dormitories and living quarters inside the maze.
Yeah.
I still have no idea what's going on graphically. With like you almost see like a second floor above you.
Yeah,
like
the camera's
or something.
The camera's like half clipped through the ceiling, so it's like you're in the ceiling looking down, but therefore you can still see the ceiling and it's transparent. It's a very odd effect.
Yeah, when I was playing it, I was thinking it's kind of a perfect game if you played Armored Core 1, but wish it was cool like Armored Core 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's Gunbike.
That's one way of looking at it.
I have to wonder, like, they had their one game, Murakumo Mech Pursuit, they never got to try, and where you're, like, chasing down flying robots through a city. I kind of wonder how it compares to that, because I never got to play Murakumo. I think it's so interesting, though, because, like, they're so known for, like, 2D sprite-based throwback games, and then, like, their two games they first made are 3D PlayStation titles.
Yeah, that are, like, not only not throwbacks, they're actually, like, trying a few too many things for their own good.
Yeah, you mentioned Gunbike gives you a lot of redundant options. There's melee combos. If you press and hold circle, that's kind of like the launching pad for like a bunch of your robot mode moves. If you hold circle, then tap X, you'll jump into the air. If you hold X while in the air, you hover, and you can move like a millimeter forward and back.
Yeah, and as far as I can tell, you never ever need to do this at all.
Ami actually does have a good dropkick move, where like
right.
You hold circle, you tap X, then you tap triangle, and she does a drop kick that does actually pretty good damage against bosses.
Right. Okay.
The others, they just jump into the air and shoot the floor, and as established, enemies are not hurt by guns. I don't know why they worked the gun into the move.
The only use I found for the gun is Ippei's gun can destroy the destructible walls.
Yeah, he's the only one that can aim.
Yeah, also has the power to aim. So I just found myself in the maze section as Ippei just shooting all the walls out rather than trying to ram them because it was a little quicker.
There is like one point that I found them useful, other than like destroying background objects in it. When you're fighting the sea monster in the second stage, or third stage rather, when it pops out of the ocean to shoot at you, if you shoot it aggroes and jumps on the deck sooner, so you can hit it, and that saves some time. That's like the most infuriating type of boss to me, though, is like when it leaves the arena and you can't do anything for long stretches of time.
Yeah, especially in a game with a timer.
Yeah.
This is sort of why I think of it as like the Zardion of the PlayStation 1. Because it's got all these ideas in it that like these ideas in a vacuum are all solid, but this is the exact wrong time to do them. Like, this should have been done, like you said at the beginning, like, this came out at the same time as the DualShock, which was an analog stick for the PlayStation 1, which it didn't natively have. But it doesn't have DualShock support.
And it really would have benefited.
So you're stuck with these, like, binary digital controls where, like, hitting the drift button will just make you spin 90 degrees. Like you're snapping to grid almost.
Well, even, like, if you're in robot mode, which is normally, like, slower and easier to control, if you hit the shoulder buttons for a quick turn, it moves in, like, stiff, like, 45-degree increments.
Yeah.
But it is a first effort. And they couldn't have... Maybe they didn't know the DualShock was coming out. They definitely couldn't program ahead for it.
Yeah.
I actually got to talk to some of the staff at, like, PAX East one year. And it was kind of a funny encounter, because, like, I just kind of assumed they would send, like, a PR guy that didn't really know what they were doing. Because, like, they had a booth handing out pins for Blaster Master Zero. And I was like, hey, have you ever heard of Speed Power Gunbike? And it turns out this guy's, like, actually, like, a project guy. He's like, oh, our first game. Yes, I remember it. Or I've heard of it. He's like, we would love to make a sequel someday, but Sony still has the rights.
Oh, okay.
But they could make something similar, they just can't make another Gunbike.
Right.
Aww.
Are there any similar games to Gunbike?
Oh, man, I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head.
Because I was thinking, like, we were talking beforehand, like, there's a Super Nintendo game called Vortex that is, like, it is...
You just want to talk about Vortex.
Well, you know, it's a low poly 3D game where you're controlling a transforming vehicle.
Yeah.
There the similarities end because Vortex is excruciatingly slow, whereas Gunbike is possibly slightly too fast.
They do have something in common, and this is probably just a me thing. Both of them give you a uniquely colored, like, robot for training mode that you can't use outside training mode. And it drives me nuts because I really like yellow.
Yes! Vortex also, like, there's this, like, urban myth that Vortex started off as a Transformers game, but, like, we were talking about this, and it's like, which Transformer was this supposed to be?
I don't think it's impossible that they could have, like, tried to brand it overseas as, like, 6-shot no densetsu or something.
Yeah, that's
like
what
that.
I was thinking. Like, the closest Transformer I can think of to the thing from Vortex is 6-shot, who, as far as I can remember, isn't even in, like, the American cartoon, or they're in it, like, once.
He was the ninja consultant.
The 6-shot commercial is incredible because it's just Galvatron talking about how cool 6-shot is while Cyclonus counts all the things he can do.
He's a jet fighter.
That's 1.
A rocket car.
That's 2.
He's a tank.
3.
A winged wolf.
4.
A laser pistol.
5.
And a robot.
That's 6. 6-shot's my name.
I think that's how the anime portrayed him too.
Sin's just sitting there because it's like, oh Christ, what are they talking about now?
Well, I also know games. I don't know if you ever heard of this little jam, Fallout 3.
I've heard of it.
I don't think you have.
Yeah, it's really nothing like Gunbike.
The only thing that really gets me excited to the same level is there's a character in the gacha game Honkai Impact 3rd, Bronya, in her Hersher of Reason form. She has this robot. Why is that funny?
Go on.
That was personal.
She's got a robot that follows behind her called Project Bunny, and it turns into a motorcycle. And so you have like a 30-second ultimate window while her attack is going off, where you're just doing like donuts, knocking enemies over in hordes. Yeah, I would like a game of just that.
So yeah, it's interesting that like they never did this again, did they? Inti Creates, like like you were saying, they could have made a game like this that wasn't called Gunbike.
Nah,
they didn't. They made Gunvolt.
They made Gunvolt. I'm grateful for that.
They made Mighty Number 9, which is about dashing.
Yeah.
But they didn't make another Gunbike.
They do have some references in their later stuff, though. Like, not a whole lot. I kept seeing, like, Wikipedia pages and stuff like that saying that, like, the naming scheme is a reference because Armed Blue Gunvolt kind of sounds like Speed Power Gunbike, but I think there's, like, a lot of games in anime that use the, like, adjective noun title.
Yeah.
But, the Plasma Legion, the obnoxious combining robot, actually shows up, sort of, in Gunvolt 2.
Right.
There's a Plasma Legion boss in that, and it's like a combining tank and jet. There are some notable voice actors. Ippei is voiced by Wataru Takagi, who's like a recurring hot-blooded anime guy. He's Valgov in Slayer's Try. And that's my reference point, because that's the kind of person you're dealing with. The announcer from G Gundam is the title card guy. I wonder if Wataru Takagi was in Reborn. He gets around. Oh shoot, he was GTO.
Oh!
He was the GTO.
What's GTO? Grand Theft Auto?
Great Teacher on Izuka.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Who did he play?
He's on Izuka.
He is the GTO.
He is the GTO! Oh, wow, okay. I couldn't remember GTO's name. When I was watching that anime, I was too busy just being scared for everyone in it. Because there's so much harassment.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this in-depth analysis, of Speed Power Gunbike with one of the 3 Speed Power Gunbike experts in the English-speaking world, TheThreeTwo.
Ayo.
So, if people are interested in other things you do, where would they go about seeing them and what would they see?
Well, I have a homepage at thirdhalf.net. I've got a lot of illustrations saved up there. I usually post things as I do them to my Bluesky. Whatever that is.
You also are a VTuber.
Twitch.tv/TheThreeTwo. Yeah, I usually go by Theth because someone sent me a t-shirt one time and they didn't know my name, so they spaced out my username as TheThreeTwo. So just like, you know what, Theth kind of sounds like a name.
Sounds like a Star Wars character.
.gov.
And you tend to stream like the kind of stuff we're talking about tonight, like just sort of 80s and 90s obscurities that are mech adjacent.
Yeah, usually mecha, usually involving anime girls. Sometimes they do like mobile game dailies on there if I just want to kill time, draw stuff.
Also, TheThreeTwo does really amazing art for people. He did commissions for the Snap Covenant. It's amazing.
Thank you.
That was Gaming in the Yeltsin Years, episode unknown. Speed Power Gunbike with TheThreeTwo.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sorry, reflex. You have to accept Gunbike with your heart. Won't you?
Thank you, Sin.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, TheThreeTwo.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you everyone for listening. And see y'all next time.
Bye.
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 Ciao, Sue.
God